This is the High Desert Luthiery podcast with luthier Robert Weber.
I think that's the cool thing about a custom guitar is, you're making it for the client's desires. That's what I tell people is I want to make your dream guitar.
Anybody that didn't get a chance to meet Robert at the last HDLI in December, which is what you see the poster back here for, if you didn't get to go or you didn't get to meet Robert, he's an absolute sweetheart. I am very grateful to meet him. These are the kind of people that I'm trying to get to be a part of the show. Our show is all about spreading love for Luthery, and Robert definitely has the love. Very happy to spend some time with him. Learned he's a Paul McCartney fan, and he'll share a little bit about that. What I really appreciate about Robert is his attitude towards what I would consider like traditional guitar design and his approach. I think in the past I didn't really have the understanding or experience in the world to fully appreciate it. But after talking with Robert, I really have a better grasp on how I feel towards people really following just kind of in a way, not to sound rude, but copying what they love and know. And Robert definitely takes his own personalized artistic spin on things. But I think I have a greater appreciation for that sort of thing now. Anyways, Robert Weber of Stolen Guitars, I hope you enjoy. Welcome to the High Desert Luthiery podcast. I'm Perry from Unga Guitars and the creator of the High Desert Luthiery Invitational, or HDLI for short. The HDLI is a small trade show that'll happen twice a year, June and December, and is the celebration of luthiers, luthier-adjacent creators, musicians, and the art that comes from combining these things. The HDLI supports the music community by providing free booths to the vendors and free admission to the public. All of the participating vendors and musicians are curated by me to create a cohesive, organized event. The HDLI encourages community and collaboration amongst the artists. This podcast is one way to help us all get to know one another. To learn more about the show and the artists, please visit the website, highdesertluthery.com. To hear more episodes of the podcast, please visit the YouTube channel, High Desert Luthery Podcast. Joining me for today's episode is luthier Robert Weber of Stolen Guitar Company from here in Albuquerque. All right, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for everyone that doesn't know you?
I'm Robert Weber, and I own Stolen Guitar Company, and I've been making guitars since about 2017.
Tell me about the name. Allison was asking me about that last night, and tell me about the name.
Well, I was going to use Weber, which is my last name, but of course there's already a Weber Guitar Company, and I really like Ravens and Crows, but of course there's already a Raven Guitar Company, but I wanted to tie in Ravens with my company. And I thought about how ravens and crows steal little trinkets and sometimes give them as gifts. So I picture my logo as a raven stealing a guitar and just carrying it away.
That's very thoughtful. That's very thoughtful.
So Stolen Guitar Company.
All
and
right.
If you don't have a stolen guitar, I can make one for you.
And it's almost a pun. I found the name so interesting. Fortunately, I've never had a guitar stolen, but I know people that have, and it's kind of a very upsetting thing. So it's kind of a funny name.
Yeah, it's a little controversial, but I wanted something that people would remember.
Yeah, very, very clever. You started in 2017. So what inspired you to get into luthery, and what was your first build?
Well, I've always played guitar since I was about 10 years old, and they've always seemed complicated to me. I watched a guy on YouTube once, and he was playing a cigar box guitar, and he was making some fantastic riffs, and I said, wow, that's cool. And then I received one as a gift, and I played it a little bit, and I looked at it, and I thought, oh, this looks pretty simple. I think I can do this and do better. So I made my first cigar box guitar. and then things just snowball from there. The thing that scared me the most, I think, was the fretboard, the spacing of the frets, but I mastered that.
What did you feel that you could do better? And what did that mean to you?
Well, I looked at the cigar box, and it just seemed very simple, and the frets were rough, and it seemed like it was just kind of slapped together. And I didn't want to make something that looked like that. The way the strings were attached to the guitar, my first cigar box guitar, instead of just using a hinge, I used a piece of copper tubing that I used as a tailpiece. And everybody thought it was pretty cool, and I thought it was pretty cool too. Cigar box guitar was pretty simple. So the first thing I did is I made a couple of those. And the thing I like about guitars is there's no limits, there's no rules. The only real rule is between the nut and the bridge and the spacing in between. And once I realized that, I found a lot of freedom so that I could do anything that I want. If I want to put artwork on there, if I want to change the shape of the guitar or the way the strings are attached, that kind of thing. Although I've been doing this for 7 years or so, I still feel like I'm just scratching the surface. I've made several Telecaster style guitars. I've made an acoustic guitar, several cigar box guitars, and I'm working on an acoustic guitar and several electric guitars right now.
Oh, very exciting. I think the last thing I asked you when I saw you was like, are you planning on making anything special for the upcoming show in June?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I'm
that's
excited. I
that's
hope to have
exciting.
a little bit of an inventory by then.
Right on. So, are you mainly just kind of building up things as you want to, or are you taking orders, or is it both?
I do quite a bit of custom work actually, and the custom work prevents me from building an inventory right now. So I'm working on a custom dreadnought guitar right now, and the client wants to put mountains for the sound hole, kind of have a mountainscape, and she wants yin yang for the fret markers. She wants the back of the guitar to be made all out of scrap wood that her boyfriend has to kind of make it a mosaic. So it should be an interesting project.
Oh, wow. I would imagine you're going to have more than just a center seam on that back. What is your approach for that?
Well, to make it all mosaic, I'll piece it all together, of course, with the different woods, but I want to make sure that it's not too thick and that it doesn't deaden the sound of the guitar. Of course, the soundboard is the most important part for the vibrations, but just don't want to make something too thick and clunky.
Will you be changing the internal bracing on the back to sort of reinforce multiple glue joints?
I don't know if it's going to be necessary. I'll probably go with kind of a standard bracing on that, but just make sure that everything's glued up so it doesn't come apart.
Okay. I've seen so many different approaches, and I noticed that with many luthiers that I follow that are doing multi-piece backs on acoustic instruments, they always tend to change their bracing structure and their reinforcements to sort of accommodate for all those extra joints. So I thought I'd ask. So you're building a mix of acoustic and electric. Do you find yourself attracted to one more than the other?
Um, they're so different. I love to make an acoustic guitar. To me, it's almost more like furniture building when you're building that box and putting the binding on and putting the bracing in. Of course, you don't have to put bracing on most electric guitars, especially solid body. So I really enjoy the challenge of the acoustic guitar. And then the electric guitar, I think, gives you a lot of freedom to make any shape that you want and put any kind of finish because you don't have to worry about having it being too clunky to affect the sound.
Okay, all right, that's a very interesting look at things. For your acoustic guitars, are you working with designs that you've come up with, or are you mostly, buying sort of like ready-made molds and stuff like that?
Oh no. Yeah, I use my own designs, but as far as size goes, like I have a mold for a parlor guitar, so I get the right size, but then I can do my, the custom things about it, the inlays, the rosette, the fret markers and things like that.
Oh, okay. So let's see if I can clarify this. So you go ahead and use ready-made molds, so they're like sort of traditional designs, and then you do your work to customize them.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to make something that's so far out. I think I like things a little bit more traditional, but I like to put a little bit of flair on that. I certainly appreciate most of the guitar designs, and I think it's hard to come up with something that's truly unique. But, if you put a bevel someplace or you make the guitar a little more comfortable or, a little bit more practical, that's all good. But I think most of those guitar shapes have been done before. I've got some ideas about putting some vents, that look like shark gills on a guitar or things like that. I know a lot of people like to make their guitars pretty wild looking. I guess I don't I don't want to go that far. I don't want to be the wild guitar man.
Okay. And are you doing anything? So with your Telecasters, for instance, did you change the materials or did you stick to the standard materials?
Standard as far as using wood goes, but I like to work with poplar. Poplar's a great wood. It's known as the softest of the hardwoods. Spalted poplar looks fantastic, with all the interesting grains and designs. You don't really need much more than that. But like I'm working with a guitar that has pecan, which is really beautiful. I like working with native woods, New Mexican woods as well. But yeah, more or less traditional materials.
I didn't get a chance to spend time with anybody at the show. I was just
Yeah.
kind of running around trying to manage my booth and trying to put out a couple fires. Um, so I'm not too familiar with what you were doing. I just vaguely saw it. I remember seeing a telly, and so are you sticking with the standard telly headstock?
No, not really. I don't like to copy somebody's design either, especially not something like a Fender. I mean, they're great designs, but I like things to be my own. So I'd like to put a little bit of flair on it. I like to change the headstock, put laminates on, things like that. I like to make it my own. I want people to buy my guitar, not a Fender guitar made by me.
Okay, so are you making all your bodies and your necks?
I like to make everything. I like to make the bodies and the necks. I did make a couple of bodies, and the clients wanted a Fender custom shop neck or something from, is it Warwick or
The
um,
Warmouth.
Warmouth? Yeah. So I've used a couple of necks made by other companies, but that's what the client wanted. So in my opinion, whatever the client wants, that's what I'm going to do. But when I make a guitar that I call custom, I like to make the neck. I like to make the body as much as I can. I don't make hardware yet, but that's something that may come down the line. I've made pickups before. That's kind of fun too.
I make a large part of my hardware,
Yeah.
and I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this.
Well, I think it makes a guitar more unique, more custom. If Perry makes the hardware, it's Perry's guitar, it's Unga guitar. And I have a CNC machine, so I think I can make some of the hardware or at least design some of it. I know there's plenty of companies out there that will actually make your design for you. That's something that I'd like to do down the line. I'd like to be able to make something where, yes, I made the knobs. I don't feel like I need to make the electronics, make the potentiometers and things like that.
What sort of CNC machine do you have?
Mine is a long mill from Sciency Labs in Canada. They're challenging, but I've got it not so much to make the guitar, is to do precision. If I need to have a template made, then I can make a nice, precise template and then use that to make the guitar.
Oh, interesting. What other jobs are you using the machine for?
Because I don't have a planer bigger than 13-inch. If I put a slab of wood on the CNC, I can surface it so I can plane the wood with that. You can use it for jointing, a lot of things really, but mainly I use it for templates, sometimes for cutting the neck pocket and things like that.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting. I'm considering getting something soon to help me make my hardware more efficiently, just to do more metal work with some different metals. And some of my designs are sort of outside of what I have in tooling. I've kind of hit my limits with what I can pull off accurately, and it just takes me forever to make a bridge. It's starting to drive me crazy. Well, another thing that drove me crazy that I stopped doing was inlay. I think if I came up with something cool enough that I might want to use a CNC router for, I might do it if it really like sets my design. And I have a lot of friends that do amazing inlay work in the industry. I totally respect and love what they do. If I'm not doing it by hand, I kind of feel like I'm cheating, but at the same time, if it helps my brand and if it improves my design, I'm totally willing to give it a shot. The other thing is, I have a hard time sitting in front of a computer, and I just like I've tried to learn the software multiple times, and I'm just like not for me. I'd much prefer pencil and paper. But there were a few new things that hit the market that kind of allow you to take that approach to CAD design. And I just became aware of them in the past couple weeks. And, so I was sitting here going, perhaps this might be the year. But it's interesting that you say you use it for template because a lot of people, builders that I know, shops that I know, the minute they get a CNC, they sort of like replace the majority of the handwork with the CNC work. And I find that very surprising. A lot of times you can go faster than the machine. And in a medium production setting, it sort of makes sense to have the machine doing something while you're doing something else. But there's still a lot of work that has to be done afterwards.
Yeah,
And
there's a
so,
lot of
like,
handwork.
yeah, you're still doing all the finish sanding and even fine shaping in some cases, unless you've just slowed down your passes and are trying to get the cleanest finish off of the machine that you can. But it just blows my mind. And so to hear you say that you use it mainly for templates, I find that very interesting. I haven't heard that before.
Well, I like the precision, and I'm like you. I don't like spending all my time in front of the computer. And I was really on the fence, like you are, about getting a CNC because I knew it's going to change my world as far as how much time I'm spending designing something and then figuring it out. I mean, it really took me a few years, but at least I feel I can get done what I need to do. But every time there's a new, like if you're going to design a new bridge, then you have to go on a CAD cam and design that. And then I find myself running from my computer in the house because I want to keep it away from dust. And then I run out to my shop and I try something. And then I run back and I make a fix on the computer. And then I run back to my shop. And I don't think you're saving any time. But as far as the precision goes, it's extremely precise. I mean, down to the hundredth of a millimeter or something like that. It's very, very precise. But I don't want to use it to build my guitars. Just I kind of use it like an assistant. Most of the people are going to use power tools like sanders or table saws, drill presses. So I look at it like that. It's just another tool. It's not going to build a guitar for me.
So you mentioned using the CNC for routing a neck pocket. Why did you choose to go that way?
I find the neck pocket to be challenging. And before I had my templates, I didn't have anything to go by. And one of the most disappointing things is when you make your neck and then you put it in the pocket and it's too loose or it's too tight and you got to go back. And I think it's extremely difficult to get it right without having a really good template or something that's going to just dial it in for you. And the CNC is great for that.
Oh, okay. So the first guitars I made were a Telly and a Strat, and then after that, I did some custom designs. And I wasn't aware of templates, but I borrowed a tele from my uncle and I had a Strat, and I took all my measurements off of those guitars, and my first templates were the actual guitars,
Yeah.
and I just used my ruler to kind of figure out where everything went. It was a really shitty ruler too. And so like I wasn't introduced to templates until 5 or 6 years later when I went to Roberto Bent.
Ah,
And then I was like, oh, this is really interesting. But even then, I'd become so used to routing the pockets to fit each neck I was making once I figured out that they're not all identical in their shape. And so you can't just like route one pocket to fit all. And I started to become more aware of the fit of things. And so, like, routing a pocket and fitting a neck to it was way harder than making a neck and then using that to sort of lay out the pocket and then route that pocket. And so I kind of realized the order of steps here, or the whole process, like this is what's starting to make sense to me. And I think after Roberto Van, I had a better understanding of how to route a neck pocket for each build. It's sort of like making a template for each neck that I'm routing. So I just build a fence around the neck on the body, and then I'm able to just kind of route that pocket, whatever size it is, and have it fit that neck as snugly as possible.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
It's such an important part of the build to me, and it's really what separates boutique instruments from everything else on the market, like especially Fender style guitars, bolt-on necks. The minute you take the screws off, a lot of times the neck just falls right out. And to me, that's sort of a poor fit, although
Yes.
it
Yeah.
functions.
Yeah.
Um, I think what those guitars open themselves up to as well is like really odd player habits where they sort of do this thing with the neck. Like they move it, if they're holding it in the playing position, I've seen players bend the neck forward or pull it back, but they'll bend it like north to south if they're in the playing
Oh,
position. And a sloppy fitting neck will just get more sloppy. And I don't know why people do the things they do,
hmm.
but it's a very shitty place to be when you're trying to repair that and find where the center line even was, and
Oh,
rebuild
yeah.
that pocket. And I remembered that and I was like, okay, I need to have my necks fitting nice and snug. I want to have to take some effort to pull them out of the pockets. And I had tried using a number of different templates for routing a neck pocket, and I'm still amazed. And I guess it's because so many templates became available on the internet and it just wasn't a thing when I started doing this. So people were buying templates and they were just going for it without like that exploration that, builders from before the internet were having to do. Even there was limited books back then too. And it blows my mind. I try and like track, or do detective work to figure out like, okay, why did this person make these decisions? What was their thought process? Especially if I don't know them. And so I find it very interesting. Are you doing anything different with your tallies, like using different pickups, different bridges, that sort of thing?
I really like Seymour Duncan's. And so I try to put those in just about everything that I make.
And are you using a traditional tele set from Duncan, or are you using like different size pickups?
Again, it depends on what the client wants, but I've made them with humbuckers at the neck or humbuckers down at the bridge, single coil. Most of the people, I find that when they're ordering a custom guitar for themselves, they know what kind of finish they want on the neck, if they want to finish at all, what kind of pickups they want, the thickness of the strings, what kind of tuners. So usually I'll just have an interview, just sit down and talk with the people and just start writing a list of all the things they want to put in there. I think that's the cool thing about a custom guitar is, you're making it for the client's desires. That's what I tell people is I want to make your dream guitar.
So have you like settled on any sort of specs with materials, body style, hardware pickup selection that you think you would call like a set model from Stolen Guitar Company?
Not yet. Not yet. I like the Seymour Duncans. I like the way they sound. I like their service. I like the way they fit. I know I sound like a Seymour Duncan commercial, but I think they're excellent. But I wouldn't be opposed to using other pickups, if they're the same type of quality.
Are there any new build styles that you're working on right now?
It's a kind of a telly setup as far as the pickups go, but the shape of the body is unique. The horns kind of bend in a different direction. I hope to have that completed for the next show.
Okay. And is this one of your designs, or is this also something that, you saw and was like, yeah, I love that?
No, it's definitely one of my designs. I get a lot of inspiration from other builders and Instagram, but I would be insulted if somebody copied my design, and I don't like to copy somebody else's design. Everybody likes a Telecaster, so probably everybody makes that Telecaster style. Same with the Strat, Flying V, things like that. And I don't find that to be insulting. It's part of what luthiers do, but I would prefer to make my own designs. But if somebody says, I want you to make me a Telecaster, that's what I'm going to do.
Like, has the idea ever come up where you are like, well, maybe if I make this change or that change to sort of make this shape my own? Have you ever messed with that?
Oh, sure. That's what I'm working on. The one that I'm working on now with the curved horns and that kind of thing. Yeah, I like to add my own flair to things.
I didn't notice this because I just didn't have enough time to spend with you. But aside from doing like a veneer on the headstock, did you change the shape at all? Or were you using like different materials other than maple?
Oh, yeah. So on the one that I'm working on now, I assembled poplar on the back, walnut in the middle, and then pecan on the top. And then I put a kind of a large bevel toward the tail piece of the guitar to expose the different layers of wood so people can really see what they look like. Um,
Oh,
I, I like to let the wood really speak for itself.
I'm kind of bummed. I didn't see that. I'll have to go back to your Instagram or something and
Yeah.
check that out.
Hopefully it'll be completed at the next show.
That sounds pretty fun. It's always like interesting to see material choice. I've studied many different approaches to neck making, and I've definitely experimented with all sorts of things. What I find really interesting is I've had more issues with super rigid necks not being able to adjust enough.
Ah,
Because there's
okay.
nothing you can do to prevent the neck from moving a little bit if you're making it out of wood. If you're
Right.
not making it out of wood, or you're doing some sort of composite, like, then we're in Ken Parker land, and he does some really amazing stuff. He just released on his Archtoppery series on YouTube. He started talking about his neck construction technique, and it's wild. I mean, like, it's not very practical for your basic wood shop. You sort of need to have some serious machining and tooling skills to do what he's doing, but like, it's really interesting. Neck with no
Is he
truss rod,
using is he using wood?
sort of.
Sort of.
Yeah, it's veneers, like veneers and carbon fiber and epoxy and all this crazy stuff. He's a great source of information on very unorthodox techniques with very traditional techniques. And if you have time, like his whole archtoppery series documents his build approach to archtops. It's long. He kind of takes a while to get to the information, but it's really cool to watch if you have time. He's
Ken
one of
Parker,
my
you said.
Tim Parker, yeah, he's the
Okay.
the originator of Parker guitars, the Fly, the Night Fly, and he's not doing the electrics anymore, but he's doing archtops, and he's one of my favorite luthiers, and he's definitely way ahead of the times in
Hmm.
whatever's being done, and definitely as far as design goes, way outside of the box. And so, like, I can't recommend his YouTube channel enough for just a different approach to things. And there's very few builders to me that are like way outside of the box. And
to
so
be unique.
he's definitely one of those guys. And the builds nowadays, they look a lot more traditional than they used to, but they're still very different. And it's great inspiration. Great inspiration for days.
Okay.
I'll look at one of those videos and I'll just be sitting here thinking about it like, is it worth the trouble? But like I've tried everything from spruce necks, poplar, alder. I sort of use mainly maple now, but like the rigid necks, I just find that you can't move them as much as you'd like to some days, and the truss rod's got to work really hard. And then
Yeah.
with the really soft woods, you can get really minute adjustments from the truss rod because now it can do its job. Now it can work a lot easier.
Hmm.
And you know, contrary to what a lot of people think, the electric guitar is not under as much forces. And even like depending on your material for an acoustic guitar, the neck itself isn't under as much tension as you would think. It's the whole thing that's under more tension and
Yeah.
basically designed to fail. Like it's just folding in on itself constantly from the day it's born.
Right.
And electric guitars, they just don't come under that. So you can get really loose with you have more freedom in the neck material you choose. I just picked up some really cool cherry that I found at the local wood shop, and I'm pretty excited to try that. I don't think I've ever made a neck out of cherry. And like basically the whole build is going to be this really interesting cherry that I found there. So I'm pretty excited to see how that's going to work. And I'll probably end up veneering it up layering it up, maybe like a 7-piece neck or something. And,
Yeah.
with some racing stripes. I have to say that nowadays neck making is my favorite part of the process. What do you find to be number one? Let's start here. Your favorite part of the guitar making process.
I'd have to agree with you. I like making the neck. I like the challenge. Again, the frets have to be laid out in the right place. And I like the fact that you can put a different kind of fingerboard, make it look whatever you'd like, and it's still going to be a cool guitar. It's still going to sound good.
We're dealing with an organic material most of the time. Like two necks cut out of the same board don't feel the same, even if it's the same profile. You're gonna like one more than the other. I've experienced this many times. So sticking on necks, have you found a material that you like more than any others that you've used?
Yeah. Maple. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just hard enough. I don't like work with something that's too soft. Mahogany is great for an acoustic guitar, but every time you look at it, there's a scratch in it, so I prefer maple.
Okay. And bringing up scratches, what kind of finishes are you using?
It depends again what the customer wants, but on a neck, I like to use a satin finish. If I'm making a parlor guitar, I like to use a satin finish because to me, a parlor guitar has kind of an old world feel to it, and I like to make it look and feel that way. Sometimes just something like a French polish might work.
What are you using material wise for your parlor style builds?
Spruce top mostly. I just bought some torrefied red spruce, some old wood. I haven't started that, but that wood is beautiful. Mahogany for backs and sides are real nice, and also the Indian rosewood.
The single O size parlor is my favorite acoustic guitar feel wise. I'm not a very big person. And my favorite sounding guitar would probably be like a slope shoulder dreadnought. I'm not familiar with Martin and Gibson sizes. I'm just familiar with what we were doing at Santa Cruz Guitar when I was there. And so it would be the vintage Southerner, and then there's a longer one. What is it? It was the Bob Brosman model. It's kind of a longer dreadnought, longer slope shoulder, and the size, those builds always sounded amazing. Really big, really full, robust,
Yeah,
articulate, but they were not comfortable for me to play. Like even the standard dreadnought size, it was a reach for me.
it's
Um,
big.
Yeah, it still is. And so I kind of became very partial to the parlor guitars and especially the single O. I think my favorite combo right now is sort of in that old Gibson student model where it's all mahogany. And so like I've become sort of addicted to these all hardwood acoustic guitar builds. Um, and
Uh-huh.
and they just have a unique place. And the other thing that I would strongly suggest you try one of these days is changing the depth on a parlor guitar. You can get great. I'll show you mine. It's right here.
All righty.
It's pretty dirty, but this is my. Let's see. Can I get far enough back? This is my
Yeah. Yeah.
single O, and it's got no bindings. The frets stop at the body joint. Uh,
Yeah.
and you can, let me get out of the way because I'm wearing black, but you can see how deep it is. So
Right.
this
Yeah.
is my hand, like it's fairly deep. And the old mahogany, having mahogany for a top, it doesn't drive the same way that Sitka does. I'd say it acts more like a cedar top, where it's articulate and delicate, like it reacts well to fingerstyle, and I play fingerstyle. But when you go to drive it, it sort of overdrives,
A little
which is
sharper sound.
no, it gets kind of buzzy, like an overdriven amp. Like when you
Oh,
really
okay.
lay into, to an amp that's in overdrive, where it's just being pushed really hard and it starts to break up. Like it
Yeah.
literally starts to break up if you attack it really hard.
Oh,
And
cool.
I kind of like that. Just like when you're plugged into an amp, you get, that little bit of breakup. And
Yeah.
I find it very fun. But like it also allows you to play really soft and get a really nice sound out of it. And I don't remember what I did for the braces. It's a traditional X brace.
Yeah.
Having worked on so many acoustic guitars, my advice to anyone doing smaller body is less braces. The less braces, the better, especially if you're sticking to X brace, like, and carve it lighter, get it to do more, carve it lighter where you can.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'd love to see your parlor size guitars. So I love them. They're so fun and they fit,
Yeah,
and
they do.
that's the most important thing. I'm going to be cutting up some sets over at Albuquerque Exotic Woods in some unorthodox materials. You just don't see them available that often. I just saw somewhere they were starting to sell black limba sets for acoustic guitars, and I'm going to cut up some ambrosia maple, and I forget what else. We had something else in that you just don't see that often, especially now that LMI's gone. Occasionally you'd see like a Bloodwood set or some Wenge sets come up.
Yeah.
And but we were looking at things and just getting to work with all those materials whenever I'm there. It's like, oh, I think this would work really well. So we're gonna cut up
I'll
some.
stop by.
Yeah, I'll let you know when they're cut up, and
Okay.
we got to do some jigging for the bandsaw just to make the resaw process a lot easier. And that's another thing too. If you ever need a planer, they got a 20-inch planer. They got like I think it's around like a 40-inch drum sander
Oh, that's fun.
and a pretty big resaw or bandsaw, whatever you want to call it, in case you ever need anything split up or anything like that. I know you were saying you use your CNC router for the leveling,
Yeah.
but that makes it super easy when you're there buying something, can you clean this up? and
Oh,
and
well,
yeah,
that's a good thing.
their shop rates are very reasonable too. And so I can't recommend the Albuquerque Exotic Woods enough. So, well, let's back up. I met you in person before we did the show. Can you talk about what you do for work?
Well, I've been in the jewelry business since 1977. So I currently own Bella Diamonds and Watches, and I've been there for about 14 years now. So the jewelry business, in an odd way, kind of ties in with the guitar business because jewelry is all about detail. And if you're looking at a fine guitar, it's all about detail. You know, I think anybody can make a guitar, but it takes a lot to make a fine guitar.
Get into the details.
Um,
I'm not
you
going
know,
to
when
let you
I'm
get away with just that statement.
Yeah. So when I'm working with jewelry, I don't make jewelry anymore, but I have jewelers that make jewelry for me, for my clients. You know, you have to just make sure that it's not sloppy, that things aren't catching. Like the prongs on a diamond ring would be similar to the fret ends on a fingerboard. So if those prongs are catching, even though they're doing their job, it's not comfortable. It doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good. And if you're playing a guitar and those frets are sticking out or they're sharp, you're not going to want to play that guitar. So
Yep.
to me, it's all about details.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Like I do repair as well. And so I've noticed that being as dry as it is, everything just shrinks and fret ends are sticking out all the time. The majority of
Yeah.
players that I've met don't mind. And they're like, you want me to dress this up for you? Like, real quick, let me dress this up for you. And they're, oh, I didn't know it was a problem. It's been like that ever since
Wow.
I got it. And it
That's
just,
funny.
yeah, right. And I mean, I'm
That's
not
the
from
first
Minnesota.
thing I feel on a guitar. I feel the neck and feel the frets and that tells me whether it's well made. And if the frets are sticking out and they're still smooth, that's one thing. But, a lot of times people, even when you get a neck from a custom neck shop, it needs to be dressed. It really does.
Oh yeah, I can't agree with you more there. Most of the time, like any neck you get from, like a fender replacement neck from All Parts, even Warmouth, it's a very good idea before you have it on the body. Level crown and polish. Make your nut if you're making your nut and get that all fit together and then install it because they're not, they're almost never ready to go. You get it assembled, get it on, get the strings tuned up, and it's spreading out everywhere. You
Yeah, it's
know,
buzzing. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's a pain in
No,
the
I
ass.
agree.
Yep. So, where do you see yourself in a couple years?
Well, that's a good question. I plan to retire from the jewelry business in about a year and a half or so. I'd like to be at the National Music, I got it here
Oh yeah, the
somewhere,
NAMM show. Yeah, that's a
National Association of Music Merchants, right?
yes, and the NAMM show is
Yeah.
happening right now as we speak. What makes you want to do the NAMM show?
Part of it is pride or ego, to be recognized as a guitar builder. And it pushes me, even if I make just one guitar a year, I want it to be the best guitar that I can make. So I think the idea of having that goal of being with other luthiers and displaying my work and having that recognition, I think that would be pretty cool.
I've realized that I work really hard to come from a non-judgmental place. A big inspiration for putting the High Desert Luthiery Invitational together, aside from like it was a makeup show, the bigger thing when Allison and I sat down and we're like, all right, how can we pull this off for free?
Yeah.
Was what it takes to do any sort of trade show. And so right away, I started, remembering my experiences at the NAMM show, having done the show with Santa Cruz Guitar for many years, and all the work that it took, and how we were working from the day after the NAMM show was over till the next NAMM show on NAMM show guitars. Like that was kind of like how it went. And in a similar fashion, having finished one High Desert Luthiery or one HDLI, immediately, almost immediately started working, for the next one. And,
Yeah.
I'm planning all that out. So that part is very similar. I don't mind that part. What really bummed me out about a lot of the trade shows was the overhead and how the scene at the NAMM show became, you didn't go there to sell anything. And if you're a little guy, they put you in Hall D most of the time. And like, you might get noticed by somebody and you might not. And I remember walking around there like the many years that I went, and it's very overwhelming, both noise and people and everything to see. Like it's
Everybody's
just
playing guitar, right?
a lot. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot. And I remember seeing so many builders there just bummed out. Like, and a lot of it comes down to your attitude and how well you can turn on the charm and like bring people to you. But like seeing that and then, knowing how much it costs everyone to be there and like seeing new companies go and then disappear after the show because they couldn't recover from it, financially. It went from being, 3 or 4 days, 4 days to like a whole week. And
It's a lot. Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of time to be there, especially when you're traveling and all of that overhead. And Elson and I kind of sat down. We're like, all right, well, what are some of the things that you're going to travel anywhere to any show that you want to go to. So, that's a personal choice. We have no power over that or influence. We got vendors coming from quite a few different states to be in this next HDLI, which is very
Oh,
exciting.
cool. Very
Um,
cool. I had a blast and I really appreciate what you did. I mean, and what you're doing. I think it's great. For me, it's about the experience. I wasn't expecting to sell guitars here, but I just wanted to meet other luthiers and to just kind of show my wares,
yeah,
it's show and tell.
yeah, I know Chuck from Sedilla Guitars
Yeah.
locally. He's got a goal of going to the NAMM show, and one of the coolest things that I saw was a bunch of luthiers that I knew and a bunch of luthiers that I didn't know get together and go in on a booth.
Oh, okay.
And I've never done the NAMM show as Unga Guitars. I've just never had the interest.
Yeah.
It's just too much trouble.
Yeah.
But like that, I think that might be a good idea. I just like understanding the overhead in that whole thing. You're starting to see the larger companies pull out of the show altogether, which is startling. And in the past, it used to be if you pulled out of the show after doing it for 5, 10 years, it was because you were gone and dead. And really, you're gone and dead to the rest of the industry because before the regular consumers weren't really there. They weren't selling tickets so you could get in. You had to have a connect to be able to get in. It was just all music store vendors, distributors, at the NAMM show. So you really had to be in the industry and a part of the NAMM organization to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Now, everybody's there. You buy a ticket and you're in. And you got Disneyland across the street and then Guitar Disneyland on the other side, along with all the other part of the whole industry. And so we were looking at that saying, how can we sort of bring that experience on a really small, not intimidating level the best that we can? Like how can we show support for all the little guys out here that don't have a shop to sell their guitars through? And we were like, all right, let's do the show twice a year. And
Yeah.
this will be the second show. This will be the summer show on June 2nd, and then we'll follow that with another December show. And if everything stays cool with Rio Bravo Brewing, and I mean, we couldn't have done the show without them.
Yeah. They
So
were great.
they were great, and I mean, they comped us the place the first show, and I turned around and said, "Hey, how did we do?" They said, "You guys did great." I go, "We want to do it again in June," and they said, "It's yours."
Fantastic.
It's amazing to have that sort of support, from a local establishment, you
Yeah.
know, and they book shows all year, all the time. And so for them to give us the space again, and this time we'll be out back with the stage they have.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, we're
Cool.
looking at somewhere around 50 vendors total, and we'll have some live music as well. We decided number one, we want to get the music schools involved that are interested and support their programs because just like we're making musical instruments, they're helping make musicians. and
Yeah.
and we sort of
School of
relied.
Rock or something like that.
Yeah. So School of Rock will be there. Albuquerque Institute of Music will be there. There's another one called Rock 101. They'll be there. So they'll all be playing a set. We gave them all booths.
Great
Yeah.
idea.
And then we picked some other musicians locally that weren't really involved with any of the other builders either, just tried to stay neutral.
Yeah.
The other thing we were working to do is create like a culturally diverse event, not just like a rock orient, or as I'll call it, a rock and roll circus, which is the NAMM show. And the New Mexico Guitar Show was definitely a rock and roll circus. It was way too much for me, just noise wise and everything. It was quite a lot to deal with, and I realized like I'm not made for this anymore. Yes, I want to show my work. Yes, I enjoy talking to people about it and learning about, about players and, people interested, but being in that sort of setting where it's just loud and overwhelming and chaos
Yeah,
is not
I
not for
agree.
me, not for me anymore. So we wanted to kind of pull inspiration from different shows I'd been to in California, and and I sort of skipped over this, but are you from New Mexico?
No, I was born in Hollywood, California.
Ah,
Uh, I missed my calling as a rock star, so I'm trying to make it up by building guitars.
and so as a musician, would you say that you're more into the rock side of things, or?
Yeah, I'm an old rock and roller. I enjoy most types of music, but traditionally, old rock and roll.
All right, who are some of your favorite bands?
Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, Rolling Stones, the Kinks, some of my favorites.
All right. And if there was one guitar player, you could even name a few if you wanted to. And this is always interesting. I think my answer changes every day. Yes. So if you could name somebody like that, you would love to get one of your instruments into their hands just for fun. Who
Oh,
would that be?
Paul McCartney.
Oh, okay. Why
Yeah.
would you pick Paul?
He's been such an inspiration for me throughout my whole life. I mean, the Beatles have just, it's kind of like a soundtrack for my life. And he just seems like a really, really nice person. I know people who know him and they have great things to say about him. So I'm not giving up on that dream.
Well, right on. You better get that lefty going soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I mean, he plays bass, he plays guitar, and
Yeah. He plays everything. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, why not? That's wow. All right, that's cool. So you are working with some local musicians.
Yeah. I work with local artists. I'm a builder, I'm a luthier, but I'm not a fine artist. So if I want to design on a cigar box guitar, then I hire an artist to do that. And I don't like to tell artists what to do. So I may say, I want a pinup girl on this guitar. And then I just let them have at it. If it's not exactly what I had planned, that's okay because I'm sharing art, I'm sharing ideas. That's what I like to do. If I'm going to do a collaboration, I'm not going to be the boss. I'm just going to say, this is what I had in mind. And I like people to express their artistic freedom.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's really cool. So we're right about the end of my questions. Is there anything that you wanted to share that maybe I missed?
Well, I think what you're doing is awesome because I've always wanted to meet other luthiers, and that gave me an excellent opportunity to do that. I'm looking forward to sharing ideas like yourself, collaborations. I certainly don't know it all. I feel like I'm just scratching the surface, and I love to be able to go to Perry and say, "Hey, Perry, what about this neck pocket or the height of this bridge, or you have any better ideas for this?" That would help me a lot. One luthier that I met at the show, LEF, I believe it is,
Yeah, LEF.
Louise.
Yep.
Yeah, he lives a mile away from me. I didn't know.
Oh, yeah. Luis is a wealth of knowledge too.
Makes incredible guitars. Yeah. So I went to his shop and he was very generous with his time.
Oh, cool. It's been really fun, getting to know everyone. Because otherwise we'd be at the show and it's the same thing. You don't have time to go
Yeah.
visit.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So how was your experience at the last HDLI? How was that?
Oh, I had a blast. I felt like my placement was great. I had plenty of room. I had my friends and family come visit as well because a lot of times they don't get to see what I'm doing. And I think I was in my element. I like people. I like just meeting people and hearing their stories.
Right on, right on. Well, I appreciate you taking the time today. Before we go ahead and plug your socials and anything else you want to.
Well, if you don't have a stolen guitar, I think you should. So let me build one for you.
And you're on Instagram, Stolen Guitar Company, is that right?
Yeah, Stolen Guitar Co. Co.
Right.
And my website is the same. Stolen Guitar Co. Don't put in stolen guitar because you'll get a list of all these people who have had their guitar stolen. So Stolen Guitar Company.
All
Thank you,
right.
Perry.
Thanks for joining me once again. And, if you have any updates or anything you want to share, as we get closer to the show, definitely let me know and we'll do the best we can to get something going. But yeah, great talking with you, and I will catch up with you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, big thank you to Robert Weber for joining me. It was very nice to talk to him and get to know him a little bit more. And I'm looking forward to seeing his next builds or what he's bringing to the next show. I'm looking forward to seeing so many builds from everybody that's bringing stuff. We've got builders I never met in person, and I would say 98% I didn't get to pick up their instruments. So, hopefully this next show allows time to do that. But thank you, Robert, for taking the time to do the show today. And as always, you can learn more about the HDLI at highdesertluthery.com. You can find the date, which is June 2nd for the next show. And you can also listen to more of our podcast episodes at our YouTube channel, High Desert Luthery Podcast. And on Instagram, it's High Desert Luthery. And please do like and subscribe, hit all the good buttons anywhere you're going to see us. I am your host, Perry from Unga Guitars, and thank you for joining me today. I will see you in the next one.